Do we have a D1 anywhere near here? Okay, we can just... We'll do أهيم واحد.
Trying to find you that.
No, it's fine.
Yesterday.
I'll do a D1, and then we'll do just like that. And then hopefully within 2-3 minutes. I'm ever the optimist. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. أهيم وحدي بذكر ربي فذكر ربي هو الشفاء الله والله الله ربي عوني وحسبي ما لي سواه أحببت ربا هو اعتمادي لكل شيء هو يشاء الله والله الله ربي عوني وحسبي ما لي سواه لكل حب I forgot the words لكل حب ربا هو اعتمادي لكل شيء هو يشاء الله والله الله ربي لي وحسبي لي سواه وكل حب لغير ربي فيه العذاب فيه الشقاء الله والله الله ربي عوني وحسبي ما لي سواه يا فوز فان عن الفناء له الحياة له البقاء الله والله الله ربي عوني وحسبي ما لي سواه يا ربي صلي على محمد من ذاته النور والضياء الله والله الله ربي عوني وحسبي ما لي سواه وآله وصحب الكرام لهم عهود لهم وفاء الله والله الله ربي عوني وحسبي ما لي سواه الله والله الله ربي عوني وحسبي ما لي سواه لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله إله إلا الله لا 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 إله إلا الله. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. It's my privilege to introduce Noha Essop with us here from Cape Town. She is an NLP master practitioner and trainer. And she is going to share with us a presentation about an ordinary life under an extraordinary teacher.
I switched it on. There we go. Orange is the new red. Not my favorite color. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. In deciding to have a talk title for this conference, I get to realize that there's many in this circle, in this community, in this family that doesn't know me. I am a mystery to many. And it was intentional. I choose to remain her mystery because I get to see myself in you all of the time. And I'm in the hope that you get to see you in me. And so, in the talk title, which came up in the kitchen one day while doing the program for this conference, I decided there wasn't quite a reflective piece in the program, and so I decided to offer for my sins to do that part. Muna spoke so beautifully yesterday about conditioned narratives, and she made it sound so beautiful. In my line of work, we call that programming. And I've had many, as have you, as have those before you, as have those who come after you. We are not without our conditions. We are not without our programming. So I was born into a beautiful family, and I'm the youngest of 4 kids, the baby. I always say that I'm not the spoiled one. I have an only brother. He's the spoiled one. But more to the point of why I'm not the spoiled one is because I was constantly reminded as a kid that I was not wanted. I was not to be born. I was a mistake. Mommy and Daddy didn't mean to have another after my brother. Lo and behold, I was the mistake. And I was born. Now, you have to beg the question at that point, then or now. Why would you still be born then if you were unwanted? Well, as the life journey carries on, you soon get to realize that there's more to life than whether someone else wanted you to be here or whether the world needed you to be here. And I've soon come to realize that my siblings, right until my age of 40, at my 40th birthday party, which was a year and a bit ago, at one of the speeches said, look, we really didn't want her. But we're now okay with the fact that you're here. In fact, you inspire us. Please don't misunderstand me. There is beauty in what my siblings said to me. Because no amount of ill words, harming words, are going to remain a scar with you. My scars have become my light. They became my candles. They became my pebbles in my road to move me towards where I need to be, where I'm meant to be. Because I went to school at 5 years old, I finished matric at 16. Very young. Every friend was either in their 20s or in their 30s. Back then, I knew nothing about being an old soul, so I just assumed I was a bit ahead of my time. But at the age of 16, again, having one of my many dark nights of the soul, I spent many days in my room alone, crying. either because someone said something nasty or some boyfriend broke up with me and I was feeling so sorry for myself, as we do. And in that moment, something profound happened to me at 16. I started talking to God. Please know at this time, I did not know how to make salat. It was because of the very boyfriend I had at the time who was studying hifz that I thought, I need to kind of do something to impress this guy. Because every time I went over to their house, they were praying. And I couldn't just keep on following the motions. I kind of needed to know what I was doing. So I discovered this little blue book where I taught myself to salah out of this blue book. And while being in my room at 16, crying one day, in conversation with God, I asked, why am I here? Why do you want me here? What is all of this? This world, what does it all mean? Who am I in the whole spectrum? A pretty deep and dense question for a 16-year-old to ask. But it was at that time that I also realized that Allah has such power that if I wasn't needed, I'd be gone. And so I resigned myself in knowing that I was meant to be, and regardless of what anyone else said to me, that I had the stamp of approval of my Lord, and I didn't need it from anyone else. By the mere fact that I get to share in energy, in air, in experiences with others, I am meant to be here, and I have earned my right to be here. At 17, being at UCT first year, I remember the day very, very clearly I chose Islam. You see, it's very easy for us to know that we were born into Islam, but do you remember the day you chose it? I remember the day I chose it. I sat socializing in UCT's union, which was where I spent most of my time, not in lectures. And there was a conversation happening amongst a few people, and we were all from different religions. Some were from none, and some didn't believe. And I remember having a moment of having to defend and explain a viewpoint of Islam, which touched me so deeply that I realized at that moment, the switch went on. I choose Islam. So along my path from then till now, I had beautiful moments of ordinary humanness that has created divine teachings. And each and every one of us are ordinary and at the same time extraordinary. The divinity within us makes us extraordinary. Our day-to-day humility makes us ordinary. But life in itself threw many curveballs, and somewhere along the line, you get to the point where what you're about, that you almost get to lose what you most love, kind of turns things around for you. And that was the day that my son went in for a brain operation when he was age 4. It was in 2009. It wasn't so much the potential of losing him, because I never feared that. I know that I'm only a custodian of 2 children, but I don't own them. I'm their navigator, I'm their guide, and I so happen to go by the name of Mom, but they don't belong to me. They are Allah's, as I am. And so, almost losing what you love most turned out to be a sure way to learn to surrender. But at the same time, I've also learned that I can't do surrender without gratitude. I've yet to find someone or some opportunity where I felt the need to go into a state of surrender without going into a state of gratitude. Being grateful for both sides of my life's coin, for both were mine, ordained and designed just for me, as it is for you, was one of the biggest turning points of my life. That every challenge, every sorrow, every bad thing, every bad word, every name calling, everything was meant for me. It was given to me as a gift. And I accept that. Because as I receive the gift, I'm able to transcend that and transmute that into its divine lesson. Ultimately into love, divine love. But it took a while to get there. And the work that I do today, alhamdulillah, has taught me that. Shaykh asked me 2 questions yesterday in Romana, one of which I was hesitant on and I don't even remember what the question was. The second one was, do you like your work? And I was emphatic, yes. It's my life. Because of what it's taught me and what it's allowed me to teach others. To wish away the bad is futile and doesn't inspire or inform growth in the path of consciousness. I never knew I was on the path of consciousness until somebody labeled it for me. Whether that was right or not right is immaterial. Awareness for my perceived bad is what brings lessons for my evolution. And something Shaykh said on Friday evening, he said, be impatient with yourself, but be patient with others. Be revolutionary with yourself and evolutionary with others. I'm not alone. I'm never alone. It's you and me. It's all of us. Transcending my perceived bad, and I say perceived because we label it as such. But if we get to understand its transcendent meaning, it can never remain that. Transcending my perceived bad into understanding of and with the mind and integrating with my heart is what gives rise to my climbing the never-ending rope of consciousness. If we had ever thought that our rope was, there's an end, we're wrong. I've been taught this through many extraordinary teachers. Some revered in science, religion, academia, but the best of them was the heart and soul conversations of someone that mirrored my shadows. Again, divinely sent. We are orchestrated every millisecond of the day, and there's no mistake of who's sitting next to you and who's here right now. It's meant. And because space and time does not exist, this has happened, is happening, and will still happen. It's all relative. My shadows have been my greatest gifts on my path to light. For every time I managed to transmute a state of shadow, I was brought to my next level of light. My next pebble in my path. My students laugh because I make up words and statements when I teach. And this thing is what I refer to as the Pebble State, where your concern is not about the pebbles that's behind you, and you have no way of seeing the pebbles before you, you only can see the next step. So trust and step to the next pebble. Allow. I intellectually know that we are all one. I often forget when I'm faced with a taxi driver in peak hour traffic. There's some people I choose not to be one with. But that too needs to be transmuted at some point. I choose when. I'm sure it's no different here in Johannesburg or anywhere in the world. But for the most of it, I know. Because of the oneness, I remind myself each day that your presence, your words, your laughter, your pain is all my own. You are my mirror, and you are beautiful, and I am grateful. Each day I write a note of gratitude for all the experiences I've had and those I sense are to come. So I have a gratitude journal I journal in every day of my life. It helps me to be present when I'm grateful for both sides of my shadowed coin. I cannot live without a centered heart of gratitude. My gratitude doesn't come and is only expressed for that is celebratory in my life. It's not just about the good. It's not just about the bells and whistles. It's about the pain. It's about the shadow. And I get to be grateful because I can transmute it and I can learn and understand it. And please know, I am no Islamic expert. I am neither an expert of the Quran. But there are certain passages in the Quran that speaks something to the effect of, if only you were people who were grateful. It goes further to say, if only you were people who reflect. Right now, that's my rope to consciousness. For now, my journey's greatest teachers are but a few passages from the Quran. One of my favorite verses being, verily, with every difficulty there is ease. With every difficulty there is ease. It is the one passage that truly explained my understanding of human behavior. Because it's not after difficulty that there's ease. It is simultaneous. And quantum physics has proven that over and over. Your challenge and support comes at the exact same time. We just have to train our minds to see both. The other passages is that I just reflected on now was, if only we were people who reflect, and the other, if only we were people who are grateful. It's only the few for now. And the reason why there are only a few is so that I may integrate. And in some small way, live the glorious Quran. I'm extremely grateful for being guided to soul travelers like yourselves and others on my path. That has helped me to integrate my secular knowledge of human behavior to that of the glorious Quran. Shaykh Fadhlalla has opened the door for me, welcomed me, and allowed me to stay for as long as I choose, as for as long as I need. He's invited all of us, but He's also invited us through each other. We are hawking reflections of consciousness. And if only we allow each other to feed the beauty that we experience. I end off with a quotation I wrote on Facebook the other day. And so I do this often enough that I write reflections because stuff can't stay in my head. Baan is saying yes, Baan says, Baan reads it all the time. So on the 7th of March I wrote, so this happened yesterday. I shaved all my hair off. I'm bald. Yes, again, but this time with no style. Just clean shaven. What a feeling. What a ceremonial sense of freedom and readying for what's to come. This after my last session in my 12-week coaching program with a dear friend, with a dear client, that I'm so immensely proud of. So proud that after my call with her, I spent a few minutes bawling my eyes out in tears of sheer gratitude. She's not only had the courage to step towards seeking help, she had the courage to implement, allow, and become her fullest potential. For now, that is, because there's more to come for her. And then today, that day, is also the 1-year anniversary of my son's brain operation, last year this time. 11 hours of surrender in action, with an end result of deep gratitude. No amount of words can even explain that day, days leading up to it and following it. But here's the point. Life is a beautiful mashup of meaningful events. All of them have meaning because we give it meaning. Some are challenging, some are joyful, but they are each meaningful and meant for us. Courage comes from being inspired from deep within and trusting our inner guidance. I have all the love in the world for my siblings, because without being told what they told me then, I'd have not have pushed so hard to emerge into the essence of who I am today and who I'm still to become. And I live in immense gratitude for that. Shukran.
Thank you, Noha, for touching us so deeply with sharing with us of your essence and your journey. I think so much of what you said resonated with a lot of us here. You gave us much to think about and connect with. I feel like all the barriers of separation are being washed away by our tears. We are literally tasting the field of unity. Alhamdulillah, shukrulillah. Thank you so much. Bless you. I think I would like to invite us all to sit in 2-3 minutes of silence to allow Noha's words to settle in our hearts and reshape the inner landscape of our consciousness at this very moment. And then we will have our next presentation with Aliya Haeri. Bismillah. Center yourself, sit comfortably, close your eyes, connect with your breath, follow your breath in and out. Keep following your breath and take your consciousness to your heart. Slowly open your eyes. Feel yourself back in the room. And let us all welcome Aliya Haeri to give her talk on the transformative nature of surrender. I'm sure everybody knows Aliya. She is a life coach and counselor and wise being. You need to turn it on. From the switch, where it says on and off.
I am wise. Assalamu alaikum. Good morning. In circles of gathering and workshops, which we've held over many, many years, both under the Academy of Self-Knowledge and on other venues, in different countries around the world, we often ask the question, what is it that you are seeking? And the reply, almost universally, it doesn't matter if we're somewhere in Pakistan or India, the United States, Scandinavia, England, 5 questions seem to reappear in various forms almost invariably. And the first is, who am I? Who am I authentically and truly? The second question tends to be, what is my purpose in life? And is there meaning in life? Meaning and purpose, of course, are connected. And the third question, is there a God or some ultimate truth or supreme reality that's behind this entire existence of ours? And the fourth question would be, what happens after death? Does anything happen after death? And finally, a question in various forms that will say, I seek a certainty, a truth, some foundation to my life that can give me a ground on which for me to lead the good life. So these 5 questions seem very challenging, but the mercy of the universe, because I believe we live in a very merciful universe, and nothing is ever not given to us when we need it. If we answer the first question, who am I? All the other questions are answered. So we're very blessed, we're very fortunate, and actually existence has been made simple for us. But, you know, we're very good at not seeing that all the time. So the topic of today's talk is the transformative nature of surrender. And I want us to, you know, have a conversation around this to look at how does surrender nourish or respond to the question, what is it we are seeking and how do we get it? That begs the question, what is surrender? So there are many wise beings out there from different schools of thought who say, well, there's spiritual surrender, there's psychological surrender, emotional surrender, physical surrender, military surrender. But at the bottom of it all, there's a single root that can define what the act of surrender is. And it is to accept what is as it is. To accept. It's acceptance. It's not a giving in, although many feel that way if you come from the level of the self or your conditioning for survival. It's not a giving up either. But if we embrace the moment, if we take responsibility for our response in the present moment, then we have put ourselves in surrender to life itself. to life itself. Now, let's look etymologically at the word surrender. Its origin in Old French, and we're going back several centuries, actually means to render thanks, to give back thanks. To whom and to what? So that is very exciting for me, that we're now going deeper into what the word originally had meant. And a related aspect of that French etymology is the idea of repetition. So when we say surrender, we mean it's an act that we choose to do again and again and again. So we often think about surrender as one instant and one moment, but in fact, it's almost an ongoing repetitive act, much like breathing. If we recognize that our in-breath, out-breath does itself without us, and we are in life and life is in us, then we have surrendered to probably the greatest truth and the greatest reality there is, and we often do it unconsciously. So the ladder in this life that Shaykh Fadhlalla refers to, the evolution toward higher consciousness, is going by steps, going by stages, by pebbles, one after the other, in continual commitment to letting go more and more of oneself's attachments, oneself's needs, and what we do on a daily basis to identify ourselves, both with our outer personality, our outer construct and life form, and all the objects and the events and the memories that we choose to define ourselves by in life. And these attachments keep us linked to the past, which of course is a bubble illusory that doesn't exist anymore. And our connection to the past brings us into wanting a better future. So then we connect ourselves to the future, which also doesn't exist. And the adage, tomorrow never comes, is a living truth. Tomorrow never comes, we only have now. So that also links into the idea of surrender, which is acceptance of what is as it is, which is another way of saying live in the present moment. And then the question arises, how do you live in the present moment? It sounds very spiritual and very much on trend at the moment, but how is it actually done? If we let go of any idea of the past, and if we put aside any concern for the future, then you are in the only real existence possible, and that is the present now. That is the present moment. And when you are in the present moment, you actually are in timelessness, because there is no content. There is no content to immediacy. So the timelessness that our wisdom teachers, that Shaykh Fadhlalla invites us to all the time, is simply letting go of yourself, your ideas, and being precisely where you are at the time that you are right now. The extraordinary thing about timelessness is you have, surrendered. You have given up any notions of anything other than just being attentive to what is in that moment. This requires simple experience, which you have all had. And when we are in that timeless moment, when we are in that interspace, that barzakh between thinking about the past or looking toward the future, what happens is that no stress, no problems, no issues, nothing can exist. Nothing exists in timelessness, which means we're not releasing cortisol, we're not releasing the stress hormones, and instead, in that place of peacefulness, what is actually coming forth are what we call the happiness hormones, or the release of oxytocin, serotonin, endorphins, and these are the merciful hormones given to us in our DNA, in our being, by life itself, that revives, vivifies, and renews every cell in our body. And as an aside, when Dr. Sykes and I were talking about this, it struck the idea that, in fact, the fountain of youth, the treasure that has always the Holy Grail, eternal life, the Philosopher's Stone, the ultimate truth, the fountain of youth is actually just now. We're all in it. We have it. It's not something you can get, It's what Shaykh Fadhlalla says in his book, Witnessing Perfection. Just open your heart and your mind and be responsive and let it take you. Because you can't ever get it. So getting is about space and time and being in the flow of the spirit of life, or if you like, the will of God, or Allah's universe, the truth, is something that we open ourselves to. So let's reclaim the idea of surrender out of its mundane usage and elevate it to what can give us eternal youth, eternal life, more importantly, and the freedom from conditioning, which is nothing other than freedom from the lower self. So that in that moment where there is no thing, what happens? It's as though there's a cosmic cleansing of everything and oneself. And when we return back into this space-time bubble that we're in, imagine what kind of choice you can make with that clarity and freedom and release of all the do's and don'ts imposed upon us by others, by society, and suddenly being able to make choices that give you that good life that we're all looking for. And so what it is we are seeking is knowledge of the self, is what it is we are seeking in this list of questions, who am I, is answered by the direct experience of being in the present moment. You know you are not bound by space and time. You know that the entire universe is in entropy, but you are not. Yes, your body returns back to the ground. It'll push up the daisies and feed the worms, but you are just part of the divine cosmic light, and you've never been separate from it, and it becomes a reality beyond the space-time world. Without that knowledge, it's almost a challenge to make sense of life, make sense of the universe, to get up in the morning and to deal with what seems like life happening to us. But when you know that you are the Nur of God, you are the agent, God's representative within this corporeal frame, this human body, and that you have been given all of the potential for the qualities and attributes, the intelligence, the love, the kindness, the mercy, the friendship, the ability to connect, to relate, to nurture, to receive, to give, that bountiful magnanimity of spirit and life given to us is something that we can then use as the North Star in our life, our compass, how to make choices, how to bring about the kind of life and relationships that we want. So again, in closing, I think the one gift that, more than anything, that has come out of my complete searching in years and years of seeking something that gave some absolute certainty and reality to being alive in this world, that made sense, that gave clarity and a cosmological understanding, is that when I picked up the Quran for the very first time, and I had no idea what it was, but I was sitting in a mosque in Washington, D.C. I had had a vision the night before, seeing the name of Allah appear in light at 2 a.m, and I had never read the Quran. I knew nothing about Islam. I was doing Sufi dhikr, so I didn't want the religion. But when you open your heart to the love of truth, you get taken up in something beyond yourself. And this is why people say they have no choice. It is that you have no idea where you're going or what's happening, and you find yourself at the flagship mosque in the United States, looking for the director who can say the Shahada with you or for you. And he was out to lunch, so I was led to his office to sit and wait there. And there was no one around. I had never seen a Quran. I'd never been in a mosque. I avoided all of that religious side of things. And then this man came in sweeping the floor. Maybe I now see he probably could have been from Egypt or North America somewhere, North Africa. And he looked at me, and he picked up a book and opened it in front of me on the desk. And he pointed, and the words were, "That book in it, ذَلِكَ كِتَابُ لَا رَيْبَ," that book in it, no doubt. And I was looking for certainty, and those words just illuminated that page. And I broke down and wept, and eventually went through the formalities of saying the Shahada, La ilaha illallah Muhammadin Rasulullah. La ilaha illallah. So before like a newborn child, before I knew anything, I was already enlightened by saying there is nothing other than Allah. There is only Allah. La ilaha. There is only God. There's only the one. There's only absolute truth and reality. And again, what a generous, merciful universe that without understanding, I'm already being conditioned into enlightenment. And we repeat it all the time. La ilaha illallah. We're declaring, we're illumined, we're enlightened. And once you say that, and it gets into your cells, and you find yourself saying it in your sleep, you don't understand why, you wake up and you really feel the experience, the gift of the merciful giver. So I want to close at this point and say that all of this, Shaykh Fadhlalla explained and clarified so beautifully, not only in Witnessing Perfection, in all of his books, but in a book called The Journey of the Self, where it's in our DNA that we are beings of light. So when the Quran, after I saw that, no doubt, the Quran no longer became religion or a book. It became a mirror, like a friend talking to you. So that's how I read the Quran. It's a reflection, It's a reflector, it's a mirror you hold up to see yourself, to see your true self. And again, in my second closing, I'll just share a few of the verses. A few of the verses that this is the third C, continuity. I'll just. Oh, excuse me. Just to share a few of the verses that again spring out at me when I read it. One of it is, everything is perishing but the face of Allah. So it's saying everything in the world is an entropy except what is true. Now the face, wajh Allah, that's interesting because in the Semitic language, wajh, face, also means presence. So we metaphorically use these terms so we can relate, connect. We love a beautiful countenance, a beautiful face. But the presence is everywhere, never fading, never vanishing. And we are that presence. We're not God, but we are that presence. So that's the sacredness of relating to each other in a different way beyond the self and the personality. So what I learned from that is, yes, we're all here for a while and leaving the world, and we have a choice. I can look at someone and say, I don't really like that person because we had an argument yesterday, or I can say, yesterday's gone, it doesn't exist. Let's clarify that, you know? I'll go approach her and say, I don't know what happened, but I'd like to not have this between us. And that person says, yes, as well. So you relate to soul, that divine light in that person, always recognizing that there we're inseparable, we're one, we're all divine, we're all sacred beings. And the personality, you know, sometimes does get in the way, so we try to clarify that, let it go, give thanks to, surrender, and your next day is more glorious, more peaceful. Another verse would be, you did not throw, but you threw. When Rasulullah was at the Battle of Badr and threw the sand to declare, all right, we now engage in war, Allah Ta'ala reveals that you did not throw when you threw. How many times, and I think all of us, if we're sitting here, have had that experience when you're either teaching, facilitating, giving a talk, or you're sitting with friends and you're asked to respond to something and you don't know the answer, you don't know what to say, and just open your mouth and something comes out. Where did that come from? And it's what that person needed. So you know, hands and limbs. But we take responsibility because we have chosen to be open and responsive to life, and so we channel, or we are the medium by which this comes through. Healing is the same as well. None of us can heal, but the shifa of Allah works through certain human beings and healing occurs. So I want to thank everyone, and especially to say that there was a wonderful motto put out by Nike some years ago. And myself, not being one that steps into gyms, that saying really struck me because it said, do it now. You know, just do it. Just do it. And just means now. You know, no dialogue, no conversation. So I bought myself some really smart Nike shoes and a nice tracksuit. And I'm sad to say I've used the Nike shoes, but never the tracksuit. But yeah, thank you all. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Aliya. Batul, thank you for sharing us the meaning of Islam. We get caught up in the words, and each language has its own little cultural affiliations associated with these words. And human beings are seeking so much freedom from all the years of oppression and suppression and slavery. We want to be free of the slavery of our false illusions. And this sets it all in a positive, dynamic light. Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for sitting here and absorbing and allowing yourself to be filled with light and wisdom and knowledge. We have a lunch break and dhuhr break. And then, inshallah, at 2:30, we will congregate here again for the closing session with Shaykh Fadhlalla, inshallah. Just as a point of reference, should any of you be interested in joining for a trek through Walter Sisulu Botanical Gardens in Johannesburg tomorrow, please sign up at the front desk. If there are enough takers, it'll happen. But if there's too few people, it may not. So do think about that, speak to each other, whether you'd like to join this. I believe it's a wonderful botanical gardens. Just do it. That's it. Thank you.